Before this video begins, I'd like to give a huge shout out to the Film Attackers. On his live stream yesterday, he gave me a massive shout out, specifically my video on Marshall Johnson yesterday, and I really do appreciate it a lot, man. The link to his channel will be in the description below.
It's all about explaining the final climactic battle for Clone Wars and how that time period parallels with the film Revenge of the Sith. I just wanted to make sure that we could do it to a level that they would feel was honoring Clone Wars the right way.
To say I was excited for Clone Wars Season 7 would be an understatement. This show is more than just a typical Star Wars show to me. This show means the world to me. It has ever since it started airing in 2008. This is my Star Wars. You see a bunch of people saying their Star Wars is the OT, or the prequel trilogy, or some even now the sequel trilogy. Well, not for me. This was my Star Wars. Yeah, sure, I was born in the prequel era, but those weren't my Star Wars, neither was the OT. Sequels certainly aren't. This is, right here, the Clone Wars. I honestly can't even explain to you how much this show truly means to me. So yeah, you bet I was more than excited for Clone Wars Season 7. One of, if not possibly my favorite show of all time, coming back for one final season? Heck yeah! Along with that, this was basically the only interesting thing I was really excited for this year. The MCU is starting to go downhill for me. DCU, I don't really care. I mean, if they make a Joker sequel, I'd be there, even though I don't really think there needs to be a Joker sequel. But whatever, I don't really care about Birds of Prey or any of that. I just want to watch Clone Wars. That's it. So believe me when I say that it's very hard for me to even admit this, but I wasn't really a huge fan of Clone Wars Season 7. Now before you stone me and get Susan to take down my YouTube channel, let me explain why I don't hate it. It's not awful, it's just fine. You asked me to describe this season in one word, I would say frustrating. So, without further ado, let's just get started and dive deep into why I feel that Clone Wars Season 7 was a very frustrating conclusion. Oh, and also spoilers. There's no other way for me to describe how I feel about the season without giving spoilers for Season 7 in its entirety. Also, if you think you know everything because you saw Dave Filoni's plans a few years ago, you don't. They actually changed it very drastically, so yeah, just telling you that. Spoilers. To me, this season was overall a massive wasted opportunity. They could have really dived deep as to what happened since we left off in Season 6. But strangely enough, we don't really get much of that. Actually, we don't really get much of Obi-Wan or Anakin this season. Now, a lot of people will probably say that this is because Revenge of the Sith is so close, but the events of Revenge of the Sith don't start to happen until Episode 9. I'm not saying they had to be in every single episode, but we should have had at least 1 or 2 episodes where we actually get to see them hang out and see how Anakin and Obi-Wan have developed since last time we saw them. It's different in the case of The Force Awakens because that was more of a cliffhanger. We knew that we were gonna see more of Luke Skywalker in Episode 8, and say what you will about Last Jedi, like or hate that movie, we got more Luke Skywalker. Along with that, this is probably one of the last times we're going to get to see these two characters. I can't imagine how else we'll be able to see them. The Clone Wars is over, this show is over, the prequels are over. I don't know how we're actually going to be able to see them on TV again. No, instead, this is Ahsoka's season, and hey, I like Ahsoka. She's my favorite Star Wars female character, so maybe she'll have some great development. I'm kidding, by the way. She has okay development. The issue is her middle arc. So remember what I said in my last video about the middle arc? They're not focusing on that. They're focusing on Trace and Rafa. As far as I know, these two weren't even in the original unfinished episodes. This Trace is such a horrible character, especially. Rafa's just kind of meh. Trace is horrible. And I thought the Cat in the Hat was scary. And that's essentially the main reason why this episode is so bad. Ahsoka hangs out with these people, but they're awful. They are horrible characters. Yeah, well, I didn't think it was possible, but it is. They actually got worse. Now, thankfully, they only appear in 2 more episodes after that video, but I mean, it's still really painful. The characters are still awful, and it's still super boring. People are over here complaining that Rey's a Mary Sue, and then they don't say these people are Mary Sues. I mean, come on. If you think Rey's a Mary Sue, that's perfectly fine, but I mean, these two, they're actual Mary Sues. Like, more so than Rey. They literally establish in episode 5 that Rafa Trace doesn't know how to fight. They never established Rafa can fight, and they established Trace can't fight. They established this when Ahsoka saves her from those stupid droids. Then a few episodes later, she's breaking out of a prison and beating up a bunch of Pikes? Come on, man. We never got to see Ahsoka train her, so how can she do that? Come on. Give Rey some credit, at least they established from the beginning she knew how to fight. Along with that, these episodes were just so boring. They were awful, they were atrocious. These were the most boring episodes of the entire Clone Wars series. They were boring, painful, full of terrible characters, and the pacing. Oh dear lord, this was the worst pacing in the entire season. Another huge issue is this isn't really final season material. Why is this arc in the final season? While Maul's story of escaping Sidious was cut. Speaking of which, why does the season not explain how Darth Maul escaped Sidious? I know they made a comic about that, but the general audience doesn't read Star Wars comics, so they still don't know what happened to him. Come on. Why? This season has 3 main arcs, and they're okay. Let's talk about the first one, The Bad Batch. It was fine and enjoyable, but it was too generic. It felt too much like a season 1 episode, just too generic. Nothing really new besides the cloning, mind-controlling chamber thingy. Yeah, the mind-controlling clone stuff, that's a bit weird. Also, I'm not really that okay with Echo going with the Bad Batch because he doesn't really have a strong connection with the Bad Batch. They didn't trust him for, like, episode 4, so, I mean, I just don't feel like he would go with them, really. I mean, I don't mind it in theory, but it just didn't really feel earned to me. Now look, the arc isn't bad by any stretch, it's just okay. It's not really a standout episode, you know? I was just expecting more from the opening arc of Season 7. And of course, the middle arc needs no introduction. You know, I wouldn't so much mind this arc if it wasn't so long. 4 episodes of pain. From the boring plot to the awful pacing and to the even worse characters, these episodes are just all around awful. Final arc now, the actual good one. The final arc in this season is one of the best Clone Wars arcs, period. Yes, I'm finally going to speak a little bit positively of this season, finally. Everything about this arc, the lightsaber fight, which is, by the way, that is now my favorite lightsaber fight ever. It's amazing. Seriously, please, just go watch it. It's the only great arc in this season. It's filled with such emotional impact. Seeing the clones turn on a Jedi was just heartbreaking. Absolutely heartbreaking. And of course, I cannot deny that this was a fantastic way to end the show right here. I honestly cannot imagine a better ending for this show. I mean, it's perfect. Yeah, this is definitely the best Star Wars movie since Revenge of the Sith. Heck, I'd argue even better. And going back to the best lightsaber duel ever, it's just so great, and one of the best things about it is it's actually being done, like, not like just through CG, but like, it's actually being choreographed by Ray Park himself and some other stunt lady, I don't know.
So when we see Maul fighting, it's gonna be really Maul fighting.
Amazing to play Darth Maul again. We've just been hitting it hard, you know, coming up with some new stuff. It's been really nice. We're trying to do as much as we can, you know, butterfly twists and flips and corkscrews. You know, that'll be fun.
We get the speed of Maul, we get moves that are inherent to Rey.
Ahsoka.
And then I'm finally taking Rey's performance and Sam's performance and putting them together. To do that, though, I needed somebody that could, you know, portray Ahsoka physically.
I'm really honored to actually work with Ray Park. It's been nothing but a great journey, and we've been collaborating, and the fans will really like this fight. It's really grounded, rooted, but then there's a lot of action-y moves that I think the fans will really like.
Lauren was brilliant at really honing in on this style of sword fighting that we wanted Ahsoka to do. Very quick, very acrobatic. It's hopefully one of the best fights we did, if not the best lightsaber fight.
Lauren's really fast because she's using 2 lightsabers.
to put this important story that I really wanted to tell down, to not leave that there with just plans and a sketchbook. It feels like a proper ending.
Man, you just really gotta appreciate Ray Park for coming back to do this Darth Maul fight. I never really even imagined this, but it happened and I couldn't be happier. But it's not just the choreography that makes this fight great, but like the actual lines of dialogue. This was an interesting dynamic between the two.
Lucky Anakin didn't show up. The way you're fighting, you wouldn't have lasted long.
You love Kenobi's arrogance.
You'll find I have many qualities for you to dislike.
We could have destroyed Sidious.
Only for you to take his place.
Listen to the amazing score. Because this had amazing choreography and amazing music, and because I was interested in this dynamic, it made for a fantastic duel. And not just fantastic, the best lightsaber duel ever. I could honestly just go on and on about how much I love this duel, but there's other great things in this episode to talk about, or this arc. For example, Darth Maul basically gets his own elevator scene, only he just uses the Force, and man, I love this sequence. In episode 11 and 12, the two final episodes, Darth Maul just goes psycho and doesn't even use a lightsaber. He just kills a bunch of clones with the Force, and it's incredible. It's incredibly thrilling. I really love this sequence. I also really love how well it ties over with Revenge of the Sith. All of that is great. Just seeing all these callbacks to Revenge of the Sith and seeing just what's happening at the same time, and when Ahsoka hears Anakin's voice on the ship, it's all so well done. And I think a lot of that is thanks to one man, one legend, one god, Dave Filoni.
The fans have been clamoring for it ever since we stopped making Clone Wars. They've been so loyal. I just want to make sure that we could do it to a level that they would feel was honoring Clone Wars the right way.
I love Dave Filoni. If you ask me, he should be running Lucasfilm. Yes, I am vocally not a fan of Rebels or Mandalorian, but I still love Dave Filoni, man. I love how much passion he has for Star Wars. I mean, how couldn't you? He's like the perfect man for the job. Also, this man is just a great storyteller. The guy really knows his Star Wars, probably partly because he was kind of like George Lucas's apprentice. I love what he's done with Star Wars, and I will always be grateful to him for that. Again, this man really knows what he's doing.
To put this important story that I really wanted to tell down, to not leave that there with just plans and a sketchbook. It feels like a proper ending.
Clone Wars as a show was extremely lucky because it actually got to finish telling the story it got to tell after it was canceled. I mean, that's a luxury most shows don't have. So basically, all I'm trying to say is, thank you, Dave Filoni. The last 4 episodes honestly just make me so sad that the first 8 were in the quality that they were. I mean, the same arc that gave us this also gave us this.
One is taking my ship.
Said no one is taking my ship.
And this is why I find the season very frustrating. We're given this fantastic last arc that, to be honest, if you ask me, is the best Star Wars movie ever. But the previous 8 episodes were kind of just a drag. I'm honestly so happy that Dave Filoni got to give us the ending that he wanted to give us from the very beginning. Like, I'm happy about that, don't get me wrong. But the previous 8 episodes it took to get to that kind of bugged me. I really wish the previous 8 episodes were not the same quality as the final arc. It's just extremely sad in my opinion. Overall, I found Clone Wars Season 7 to be very disappointing and frustrating. However, that doesn't say it's horrible. It's not a bad season by any stretch. It's just a massive letdown in my opinion. The final arc though, that was perfection. Season 7 had the potential to be the best season of the entire show. It had the potential to be basically perfection, but instead, most of it was honestly pretty forgettable aside from that last arc, and that's a real shame. However, that isn't to discredit all this show has done. Without this show, I wouldn't be as big of a Star Wars nerd as I am today. This show made me a Star Wars fan. The show is still something special in my heart, even if the final season wasn't as great as I hoped it would be. And that is all once again thanks to Dave Filoni.